How much does it cost to live in Italy? How much do you need each month to cover all essential expenses? You'll find out in just a moment, because I'm going to show you updated data on the cost of living and the main spending categories, so you'll have a clear and realistic idea of how much you'll actually need each month to live in Italy. The information is based on official sources, including the National Institute of Statistics, Eurostat, and major consumer associations. First of all, is Italy an expensive country? To answer that question, we can look at official Eurostat data, which compare price levels across different European countries. These statistics rely on purchasing power parities, a kind of virtual currency used to measure how expensive or inexpensive a country is compared to the EU average, set at 100. According to the latest data available from 2024, Italy has a price index of 98, slightly below the European average, by just 2 points. By comparison, France and Germany are somewhat more expensive, while Switzerland, Ireland, and Luxembourg are among the costliest countries in Europe. At the opposite end, Turkey, Macedonia, and Bulgaria remain among the nations with the lowest cost of living on the continent. In practical terms, Italy cannot be considered an expensive country. It sits just below the European average. It's cheaper than the major northwestern countries, yet more expensive than Eastern Europe. Despite this, it's important to remember that over the last 20 years, prices in Italy have increased by an average of 49%. A product or service that cost 100 euros in 2004 now costs almost 150. But which categories have experienced the biggest rises? Once again, we can refer to official Eurostat data on consumer price indices. From 2004 to 2021, price increases were slow and stable, roughly plus 1.5% per year. Since 2022, the trend has reversed. Prices have accelerated sharply, with nearly half of the total increase concentrated in just 3 years. The goods and services that have seen the steepest increases since 2022 are water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, plus 53% in 2022 alone. Transportation, food and non-alcoholic beverages, restaurants and hotels, healthcare, housing, furniture, and household appliances. But which Italian regions are the most expensive or the cheapest? And how much do people actually spend to live in Italy today? According to the National Institute of Statistics, the regions with the highest cost of living are Trentino-Alto Adige, Veneto, Lombardy, Lazio, and Emilia-Romagna. These are historically wealthy and developed areas, where we find higher average salaries, efficient services, strong economies, and significant tourist demand, all factors that collectively pushes up the prices of goods and services. These regions also include some of the cities with the highest housing costs in the country, such as Milan, Rome, and Bolzano, long among the most expensive places to live in Italy, as well as Veneto, known for its high density of businesses and one of the highest GDP per capita values in the country. Tuscany, Liguria, and Friuli-Venezia Giulia also have relatively high costs of living, although they don't reach the very top of the ranking. And what about the least expensive regions? The regions with the lowest cost of living tend to have lower incomes, less developed economies, higher unemployment rates, and in some cases, depopulation and limited tourist flows. At the top of this ranking, we find Molise, Calabria, Basilicata, Sicily, and Sardinia. Living in these regions costs less, But this advantage comes with certain limitations. What I mean is that the lower presence of advanced infrastructure and public services can limit mobility of leisure options, making the savings on everyday expenses a trade-off for a lower overall quality of life. On the other hand, it's worth noting that, from a climate perspective, some of the regions with the lowest cost of living enjoy more favorable weather, with reduced heating and winter clothing expenses. At the moment, the average price of an espresso at a bar, an icon of Italian culture and part of daily life, is about €1.25 compared to €1 in 2021. Naturally, touristic cafes or high-end patisseries may charge more, while neighborhood bars generally remain cheaper. In the province of Venice, where I live, a coffee costs around €1.30, €1.40, for example, while in many areas of southern Italy it's still around €1.20. The average national price for a pizza meal at a pizzeria, with a margherita, a drink and service charge, is about €12. In the most expensive areas, it can reach €17, while in cheaper regions, it can drop to €8. Personally, I pay €6-7 for a takeaway margherita. As of November 2025, the average price of gasoline is around €1.70 per liter. That means one US gallon would cost about $7.44 and one UK gallon about £7.73 at current exchange rates. Diesel costs slightly less, around €1.66 per liter. These prices refer to self-service. Full service is more expensive. Rates also vary by region and location. Highway stations, for example, charge significantly more than regular roads. Determining the exact price of bread isn't simple, since it varies depending on location, quality, and type of product. On average, the national cost for 1 kilo of bread is around €5.50. Over the last 20 years, it's been one of the products with the most significant price increases, along with pasta, which now costs about €1.90 per kilo. Let's also talk about the cost of drinking water, because Italy is among the European countries with the highest consumption of bottled water, and you may end up buying it at the supermarket as I do. According to official data, the average price of bottled water ranges between 25 and 35 cents per liter, depending on brand, size, and supermarket chain. Compared to tap water, however, the difference is huge. According to Consumers Forum, bottled water can cost over 10,000% more per liter. A shocking figure, considering that in many parts of Italy, public water is safe and high quality. If instead of buying a home you choose to rent, you'll need to include this cost in your budget. As shown in the chart, rental prices have increased almost continuously in recent years. This isn't just the result of inflation or a temporary phase. It's a structural change in the rental market. Today, about 25% of properties are no longer rented through traditional long-term contracts, but through short-term and transitional rentals, designed for students, temporary workers, and tourists. For landlords, these contracts are more flexible, easier to adjust to market prices, and generally more profitable. The results? Fewer available homes for people seeking stable housing, and therefore higher rents. Currently, the average rental cost in Italy is around €13-14 per square meter. This means an 80 square meter apartment may cost between €1,000 and €1,120 per month. Forecasts for 2026 indicate further increases, with prices expected to reach €15 or even €16 per square meter. Remember that these are national averages. In some areas, you'll spend less, but in others, prices are significantly higher, especially in university cities, tourist destinations, or regions with a generally higher cost of living. Some of the most expensive cities in Italy are Milan, Florence, Venice, Rome, and Bologna. In this table, you can check the full ranking of average rental prices per square meter for all 20 Italian regions. For greater accuracy, in the description you'll find a link to a website showing updated prices not only by region, but also by city and specific towns. So you'll always have an up-to-date reference for rental costs, even months or years from now. Regarding food expenses, according to consumer associations and 𝗬𝗏𝗧, the average monthly food spending is around €340 for singles, €270 per person for couples, and €220 per person for a family of 3. For singles, the cost weighs more, simply because they must cover everything alone, without sharing expenses with other family members. Food represents, on average, about 16% of an Italian's monthly spending. Utility bills, which include electricity, heating, water, and waste taxes, vary based on usage and the season. However, I can give you some guidance based on official data. On average, monthly spending for these categories is around €200. Heating weighs heavily during the colder months, and in winter your bill may be much higher than average, especially in poorly insulated homes and colder climate zones. In summer, costs drop because you're not heating your home, so electricity and water become the main expenses. Now that you've seen approximate figures for the main categories, the inevitable question is: how much do you need in total to live in Italy each month? According to current estimates, total monthly expenses, considering rent or mortgage, food, utilities, transportation, and other essential needs, are approximately roughly €1,900 per month for a single person, around €2,800 per month for a couple, around €3,200 per month for a family of 4. These values vary depending on the area, needs, and lifestyle. The largest expense in most monthly budgets is almost always rent. For homeowners, this cost disappears entirely, significantly improving the household budget, since one of the biggest monthly expenses is removed. Always remember that when it comes to the cost of living, especially in Italy, some expenses can vary greatly from one area to another. Larger, more economically dynamic cities tend to have much higher costs, while in less populated areas and regions with less competitive housing markets, you can live with much less. With the same pension or salary, for example, it's harder to live in Milan or Rome than in smaller, more affordable towns, where rent, services, and daily goods cost considerably less. According to estimates, a single person who spends over €1,900 per month in Milan might spend only €1,200, €1,300 in many areas of southern Italy or smaller cities. A significant difference in the monthly budget. What do you think about the cost of living in Italy? Is it in line with what you imagined, or does it seem too high or too low? Let me know in the comments, and check the description, where you'll find links to my videos on everything you need to know about buying a home in Italy, as well as the taxes and the fees involved in the purchase. Ciao!